So before we continue, let me quickly explain to you the assets we have. Since the overarching topic of this video is making you understand what UV unwrapping is and how UV unwrapping works. So here we have few geometry elements, a wall, a floor, a boxy furniture piece, and then two circular cylindrical looking pieces and something more asymmetrical like a bent shell for his chair and then the legs. The tricky part is if we have a texture, how do we put this over this geometry? So for example, here, when you download all the texture images from the link that is provided in the video, we have, for example, kind of like this felt or this leather. We have this veneer image, this plywood layered image, the wicker, or the floor and the brick wall. So how do we make sure and tell SketchUp in literally every 3D program? So what I'm going to show you here conceptually applies to every program. How do we help it to understand that we want the texture of the bricks to go vertical? No, the floor should look like it's wooden floor, and the wicker material should go around kind of like this cone, etc. So these textures, by the way, I got from websites like architectures.org, which is really amazing and free to use. Perfect for us interior architecture designers. Then SketchUpTextureClub.com is also very good. Just become a member, register. It's very cheap, but you help them to run the service, and they have a huge extensive library of materials to use. We can also look for materials in Google, and then always we type in the type of material and then seamless and texture, because we want to have images that can be tiled, so we don't really see the seams or how something is tiled, because then it becomes very obvious. That's kind of like one irregular piece we glued next to each other. And you see all these images, which I'm searching here under leather seamless texture, they look very even. Like this can connect here. No, actually cannot. So this doesn't even work, because when this is a triangle, we need to have a triangle here. There we have a triangle. There we have a triangle. Triangle, corner, corner. And this, for example, is very seamless. Okay, good. So how does UV unwrapping work? It sounds kind of magical, but it's very logical. So take a look at this image. We have a cube on the left side. Now you see this UV test pattern on it. In the middle, it starts to unfold, and on the right side you see the cube and this pattern being unfolded. Now in real life, we take a sticker and then we can glue the sticker onto a flat wall, or we can glue the sticker over a light post, which is a cylindrical shape. So the physicality of a wall helps us to position a sticker and fold it over it. In 3D computer graphics, it just doesn't work that way. So some smart people, I really have high respect for math people who programmed this stuff, they developed this method of UV unwrapping. And UV, think about it as X and Y in a two-dimensional coordinate system. So we take this geometry and then we kind of like in, let's say in fashion design, we mark seams, how this is going to be cut apart with virtual scissors, and you see then we can unwrap it. And then when it's flat, we can put a texture on this flat pattern, and this then helps the software to understand where in 3D space, on what face should what texture pop up. Let's go to here. I know this is a mushroom, maybe a little bit more like Mario Brothers, but this is a really good example. I will zoom in a little bit. So here we have the geometry. Here we have a texture. Pay attention to this grid. And then here we have the geometry with the texture on it. You see that the stem part was unwrapped like a band, like a rectangular piece. And then wherever one face is, it copies that texture and puts it on each face. Same for the hat and the stuff below. And that in a nutshell is what UV unwrapping is. And it doesn't matter if it's a chair, a wall, a door, a face, a spaceship, whatever. The technology is for every program and for whatever geometry the same. Okay, good. So with all that said, let's try to do this inside SketchUp. And we will actually work here with the wood floor and the brick wall as the first piece. So let's get started with the brick wall. What's important here to understand is that this brick has a width of 34.3 inches and a height of 10.7 inches. And you see that this perfectly tiles. So the left is the right, the top is kind of like the bottom, no? Perfectly tiles. And I, for this demo, just simply will copy and paste this number. 34.3 inches. So let's go to SketchUp. Here is my wall. And let's take a look at what we have here. So I have the group entity. It shows no material. And then here are my materials. Here is actually one rule what you do not want to do. Even while you can do it, just don't do it. I can drag any color or also material from SketchUp onto this geometry, this group. And you see then this group gets this material added to it. Two reasons why not to do this. First, you don't really want to add a material to a group because it adds that material literally to everything inside. So when I double click, edit the group, select a face, you see the outside and the inside face has actually no material. So this can be really quite confusing. Some external render engines really struggle with it. So even while we can do it in SketchUp, you don't want to do this. We only apply materials directly to a face when we edit the group, not a material to the group. And secondly, I'm honest, do not even consider using the materials that come with SketchUp. They're corny, outdated, lame. It really looks like you're lazy when you use these materials because it looks like, oh, SketchUp. That's the reason why we have beautiful websites like architectures.org, SketchUp, Texture Club, and so many more where we can find much better, more modern materials. These materials here are pretty outdated. So to remove all the materials, I say here first, no material to the group, and then here this face, no material. Okay. Now let's go to in model. Now I added some crazy materials here, which I can remove with right click. Now again, I know the Windows interface might be slightly different. Well, it's pretty much the same, more or less on the PC in terms of functionality. Let's go right click, new texture, navigate to where you have downloaded the images. Here's the brick, 34.3 inches width. Okay. And here's now one of the cool aspects of SketchUp. It allows us to create materials to scale. So here we type in 34.3 inches tab. I have the lock turned on, so the ratio remains the same. It scales then the height for us. Click OK. Very good. Now, I will double click, edit the group, and then drag this image onto this face. Sure. That's actually pretty cool. This ground here, I will hide for the moment. So we see the brick really starts on a border line. That's pretty cool. And then, yeah, what's going on here? Now we can see, yeah, this is not correct. The opening of the window is right inside the brick. Nobody's going to cut a window this way or insert a window, so we have to cut bricks. Wood siding, vinyl siding is one thing, but not with bricks. The reason why I point this out is, well, what I show here is a little bit of a simplified version, but in actual construction, the bricks aren't just put there randomly. It's all calculated that where the bricks are, horizontally and also vertically, we can put in windows without having to cut material. So what I will do here in this case is I will, for example, this opening, I move up a little bit. Now let's say kind of like maybe to there. Actually, I will use the push and pull. So it should sit kind of like on top because there's no mortar line. And then here, this one we bring up, yeah, under it. Technically speaking, in here under the brick and under there would be a steel sheet that prevents these bricks to fall down. But I think we can all agree on that this actually looks accurate. No? Before that looked like somebody didn't pay attention. So you see, we took this image and we just glued it over it, reprojected it all over it. Okay, so let's take this image and drag this onto this face. Oh, pretty cool. No? We zoom in, yeah, there's an issue. So right click, say texture position, and now here I have my start, rotation, distortion tools, and what I can do now is I move this a little bit to, yeah, I need to figure out how can I move this? This wall has actually a thickness of 4 inches, the brick is 4 inches, so I might run into the issue of that the left side and the right side here slightly show some artifacts. Kind of like you can see how this is slightly bright. In this case, it is fine. I could stretch the texture a little bit to make this look like this brick then follows around this corner and goes to the other side here. Let's add this material to that too. Well, there you can see this. Well, this looks pretty cool. Also, while looking at this, it looks kind of cool, but it has still some issues. So maybe here, this, yeah, I might actually bring to there because, or we could start this way if we want. So there's the mortar line. The brick starts. Here we have a corner brick, normal brick, corner brick, normal brick, no? Okay. Then here now I can move this down a little bit. Yeah, cool. Okay, and then this face, right click, texture. I can simply with the mouse click and drag this down. Yeah, cool. Okay. So from the top here, I don't have a top image of a brick, so I can't really use this. Normally that would be like a sandstone piece or anything else on top of it to just hide what we have there. But I hope that actually this little exercise already showed you how you can bring in an image to scale to the architecture. So we don't have to be concerned about is this image big enough or so. And then with the right click texture and position command, we can then move everything very easily around. I would do then the same here. For this exercise, we don't have to do this. Cool. Okay, let's go unhide all. So here's our ground floor. Now right click, new texture. I have here my wooden floor. So this has actually a really big dimension. So width is 182.4 inches. Okay, you will see something quite surprising. That thing looks massive. So I picked this actually on purpose, just to show you also when something can go wrong. If this image should be correct, then these wooden planks are, yeah, 12, 3, 15 inches wide. I mean, maybe this is actually correct. No? So it's an interesting thing here. Do we want to show like a small hardwood floor surface? Or are these actually really big wooden planks which are put onto the ground? No? So how can I adjust this? I can right click and say edit and then say maybe, yeah, let's say 6 inches. So we make this half. Whoa. Now this looks more like parquet now. 10 inches. Yeah. Okay. This is maybe more doable. Now we turn this image of huge wooden planks into something like parquet. Okay. I think this is a really good demonstration to show you how the image you have, a wooden floor, doesn't really mean much, but the scale means so much more. It's really important. I could also, as an alternative, have went into the group, edit, right click, position, and then you see here there's this rotation tool, and with that I can scale this up or I can scale this one down. I can also rotate it. No, like make this tile over it. Talking about tiling, you see all this, each is actually one tile of an image. And this image is made to be seamless, so we can't really see bad tiling. Actually, we can see repetition 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we can see this tiling there, but it's kind of like a downside of texture mapping. Here we can see a column, there is a column, so we can see this repetitive elements. In real life, we can work with bricks and put random bricks onto a wall. It's very easy in computer graphics. Yeah, we don't really want to have an image for each individual brick. So we have to figure out a means to cheat that illusion a little bit. Sometimes if we see this like the wooden floor from a different angle, we might not see this. Or here we would make a photo in Photoshop, a nice image of this whole wall, and then create a custom texture. This is more advanced material for later, but I thought this is very good to point out already at the beginning. Very good. In this next step, you can see I hit the architecture model. So the tag is turned off. Let's focus on this object. This is very much a box. And even while the legs, they look kind of like rotated, but we deal primarily with flat faces, kind of like the wall and the floor. And let me go back here to this image and show this to you one more time. You can see this is a box, and then we have everything unfolded, all these faces. So this is for planar projection. Planar, this is a flat face, and we take a flashlight and project the texture onto it. So the main carcass should be white furniture paint. The front face should be layered plywood, and the legs, they should like real three-dimensional wood. On the Mac here, we'll go into edit group, select everything. Then I will go to new, like the color wheel. I will pick myself a color, and then I paint this, and this kind of like created then the material for it. Or we can just right click new texture. Very good. So that's done. Now, this front face, there I would like now to add a nice texture of this layered plywood. So right click new texture, and there it is. Let me open this image, and here's similar to the wooden floor, a question of scale. How big is this in relationship to this geometry? This is 1 inch. So when we take this image, should we squeeze it into this 1 inch area, or should we say this piece should be 2 inches? So half of this image will be displayed on this part. So it's for us a question to decide. Again, we don't need to force all this into there. And here in this exercise, we do an interesting experimentation. So click on open, and then we specify this to be 1 foot by 1 foot. It's all good. It's totally wrong, but it's fine. And let's drag this onto it. And there we can see, yeah, now 1 foot, way too big. There's also here a seam, right click texture position. There we can see there is the seam where this texture is actually not seamless. It's tiling. There we can see this. So the left and right edges of this image don't line up as perfect. Okay. Right click edit. What about we set this to 6 inches? Oh, look at this. Now it gets already smaller. 3 inches. Better. 1 inch. Now this is 1 inch. That is the height. We can agree that is way too tight. Plus we see a really irritating tiling here, or repetition. So to do this right, we need now to figure out how wide is this. So 12 and 4, 16 inches. Okay, so that's very good to know. And we know this is 1 inch. So right click, edit. And here now we say the width is 16 inches and the height is 2 inches. I say 2 inches on purpose to make this a little bit bigger. And enter. Cool. So right click, texture, position, and then this, I move over to here. So this is where this starts. Interesting, what's going on here? This should actually be correct. So let's see. Yeah, this is 16 inches. Okay, cool. Maybe drag this onto it one more time. Oh, you saw when I dragged this onto it, it updated it. So there was kind of like an issue in SketchUp to make this synced. There, now you see 2 inches, 16 inches. And this I will drag onto this corner down there. Cool. So here the image starts 2 inches up and then 16 inches to the right. The bottom part is cool. The top, maybe left and right, and that's totally wrong. So check this out. I'm going to draw a line and a line and a line and a line. So I did the mithering here. Now I can select this face, right click, texture position, and then here I move this to here, this corner, from there to there, and then I rotate this down. When I rotate it, you see there's a rotation point. This arc tells me this is 16 inches, so the original length of the image. There, click. Then here, right click, texture position. We move this to there, bring this over. And there, texture position, there, and bring this down. So, and then when we zoom in, it pretty much should, like, density-wise line up. So this lines up, very good. This lines up, very good. It's actually artificially perfect. It can't really be that perfect in real life. So this one does not match. So I have this one, this corner here, and then this one there. This was good to know. And then position, I see this is the issue. So this goes to there, and then when I bring this one up, lock, and then I zoom in, now there you can see how these elements all line up. Cool. And then here this works too. And that is essentially all the magic it is to, for example, create furniture or any type of geometry where we have material that goes 45 degrees, 90 degrees or so. We simply draw these lines on the face and then rotate the image mapping, the texturing on each individual face. Now we can take a look actually at these legs. They're a little bit more easy. So right click, new texture, and we have here this oak veneer. And what we want to make use is more of this side stuff here, for example. So click open. I don't really know yet the dimension, so I just keep this as is. Double click this face and drag this onto it. Right click and say texture position. So I can see when I bring this over, yeah, it actually nearly occupies the space pretty much. Okay. So edit, maybe instead of 1 foot, maybe 10 inches, making this a little bit smaller. See how I drag this onto it one more time, and I think this made this a tick smaller. So now I bring this texture to this corner, and we can see the veneer, the grain going up and down, and I'm going to rotate it, and I pay attention to this dotted line so that it actually lines up with this part of the furniture. Yeah, can also scale this down a little bit. Yeah, so maybe edit. Oh, look at this. It actually ignored this 8 inches. There. Hit enter. Okay. I keep this, again, I keep this accident in it just to show you how, when I work with elements here, that sometimes I also have little hiccups with SketchUp. Yeah, okay, good. Zip. There. There's actually no a tiling. It's on this tiny corner there, so we don't really see this, so we can get away with it. Okay, so this side is kind of good. By accident, I applied the material to the group. Now, so you see how I fixed this. So here, let's add this material to there. There's actually this piece. And then I simply position this so it starts to look good. Oh, look at that. You see? Yeah, it looks more like real wood. Then here we do the same. Right click, position. Try to rotate this a little bit. Don't scale it. And we can move this down. So here's a rotation axis line. So I line this up. Very good. Now there we can see left and right is a little bit different. That's totally fine. This is three-dimensional wood. We can't fake this via images, but based on the view, we can give somebody the illusion of it. A big tip in 3D texturing, modeling, rendering. What you don't see, you don't care about. It's not about being lazy, it's just working efficiently. This face and this face, we probably never will deal with and see. This one we do. So we add a material just onto this face. And then we can just rotate it, maybe use something different so it looks different a little bit. Yeah. Look at this, no? This actually is not too bad. Obviously, it's not physically accurate, but everything what we do in SketchUp is creating an idea. I guess that's also why SketchUp is called SketchUp. Sketch an idea. Actual furniture modeling I would not do inside SketchUp. Actual architectural modeling I wouldn't do inside SketchUp. It is, however, a very great tool to quickly develop concepts and visualize those. Cool. Okay, so this piece is kind of done. Let's take a look at these two cylindrical shapes. They are quite interesting. First, cone, normal cylinder, cap, a cap with a rounded edge. Let's go back to here and to this lovely mushroom. And as cartoonish as this is, this image perfectly explains what's going on here. So look at the stem. The stem is unfolded like a band, and the head that's, well, a circular sticker. And it's pretty much the same here. Here we can glue a circular shape onto it. On the side, we have to create a long band and then start on one end, fold it around to the end. And this geometry, so this circular cylindrical shape, we need at one point to cut open and then unfold to make it flat. Okay, so let's go, make a new texture. Right click, there's the wicker. And we can keep this maybe at 6 inches, 6 inches. And then we add this to it in group edit. Looks all pretty cool from a distance. Yeah, wicker. But if we zoom in, then yeah, what is going on these edges? And when we in group edit double triple click till eternity, you can see these dashed edges. And if we zoom down, there we can see edge, edge, and edge. And then here, these are the vertical edges. So each face gets its own texture. But from face to face, the texture isn't seamless. Welcome to SketchUp. This is already where SketchUp basically stops being useful. So what we have to do is install an extension called Sketch UV. That's quite easy. We can go to Extension Warehouse. There we type in Sketch UV. And click Install. And you can see on this image, this is a bend geometry and how this texture flows along it. So this is a really useful tool. Okay, so what we will do now is basically, because this is an organic shape, it's more complicated. We will use Sketch UV and we tell it where we would like to start cutting the space open and along what direction. So you can call the command or go to Sketch UV, click it. I'm inside group edit. It asks me to select a vertex. There's a vertex. It asks me to select an edge. There's an edge. And look, there's now a green and a red line. This is U and V, or X and Y, inside a two-dimensional coordinate system. And on the next step is kind of like the pure magic. Right click and we can say tube mapping. And look at this. It is corrected. Because now, basically, the software took all these faces and unwrapped it pretty much like this. And then the software puts the image perfectly over it. There, now you see, super easy. Little tip, you see here there's a seam. So ideally I should have done this at a point where we don't see that seam. That seam is impossible to prevent, by the way. So cool. Okay, let's go to here. Right click, new texture. And this time it's up to you if you want to use the leather, orange, or the felt. I will use the felt. Okay. Also here we don't really know the size, 6 inches. Yeah, it's fine. We can drag this on, drag this on. The texture is so irregular that we might actually not necessarily really see much of a problem. With the wicker, if I add it to there, yeah, we can slightly see some of these problems. Okay, now so this is kind of like considered circular mapping. On the flat face, it's planar mapping. On around a tube, that's tube mapping, circular mapping. But also here, pretty much it would be the same. We can use, whoops, sorry. Wait, hold on. Triple click, there are all the edges. I shift, deselect the top face, call my command, click, click, right click, and say tube mapping. You see also here cylindrical sphere, planar mapping, but tube is what I want. And there you see now the end result. It's actually a tick better. No? Okay, When we do this, however, we get this interesting garbage on top. So here I am with the eraser, remove these added lines. I will explain these lines later. And then I drag this back onto it because that's planar mapping. Cool. Okay. Now, let's take a look at this. Here we have this and this. This is a flat face, easy peasy. Here, yeah. Oh, look at this garbage. Completely useless. Here again, we triple click till we see these edges. UV sketch, click, click, right click, tube mapping, and then we just fix the top issue there. Done. This, for example, is done. Little trick too. We don't always have to do everything again. I just make a copy and make sure this snaps right under it. Yeah, and you see, we take a look. There's obviously a disconnect between the flat top surface and the rounded surface. In real life, it would be two because I would have a piece of fabric I cut this way. I have this band, and then I sew it together and wrap it over the pillow. Now, I work in furniture design too, so I mean, I try to unwrap and project textures the way how I would fabricate it inside my wood shop or model making shop or with my clients. Okay, very good. There you see, we have this one done. Easy peasy. It wasn't too bad. Let's finish everything with taking a look at this chair. And this one is going to be quite interesting because I will repeat some of the elements what we did before, just on a different set of geometry. And that's on purpose just to show you how even something like here with the legs, which looks so different because it's a pipe that's circular and bent 2 times, is pretty much the same as working on this or this geometry. So in furniture design, such a leg, for example, could be chrome or steel. I have here my material. I can drag this one on it. Easy peasy. Can also be powder coated steel or so, different colors and whatnot. Sometimes we have, however, pipes which are covered in leather. So this is something what we're going to do here. First, what I would like to do is a little bit of pre-planning. I know that this is roughly 1 inch diameter. Okay, so when I create myself somewhere a circle with half an inch of a radius, that is then 1 inch diameter, that tells me this is 3 1/8 of an inch the circumference. Okay, for example, I can copy this. Okay, good. So what I will do now is right-click New Texture. Then I will select this time the leather orange. Okay, and then here the width, I paste this in. Essentially what I did now is I created a sample that when we start at one corner and we glue it around, it would end on the other side. So it perfectly fits, no? Okay, so let's get started. I go select the object, double click, triple click. There we have everything. And now I will go to, where do we do this? The inside, if I select here this edge, we might see the edge there. Here, this might be a good opportunity. Sorry for the crazy movements. But here, this is where I will select my part. Okay. And for example, here, tube mapping, very good. And the material I can apply to it. Might actually have to do this one more time since I added the material. Sorry, I unwrapped it, add the material. We have to add the material and then unwrap. And actually, the material is nearly seamless. See, it's a very good detail there. Now we zoom out. Look at this. How beautifully this actually flows over the geometry. There's no distortion. This really looks like I picked a piece of leather and then wrapped it around it, like a sleeve. Let's do this one more time here, just for good practice. I will drag the material onto it. Double triple click till I see these edges, and then I will do my unwrapping. Pretty easy. Awesome. Cool, no? Okay. So you see, even adding a texture that has to flow along a tube or some sort of a tube that is bent is actually really easy. And it's the same command like wrapping the texture around a cap with a rounded corner on top. Now the chair, that one is going to be quite interesting. And there you will see something that this extension is doing that is quite genius. Let me explain something first. This is a face I can glue a veneer onto, for example, this way. There a face, I can glue this on. And here and there, yeah, and that looks maybe first all good, but now then there we see this is kind of junk. Right click, texture position, I can rotate it 90 degrees there, maybe move this so maybe we don't see that seam there. Yeah. No, actually, well, we could even say that's kind of even doable. But if I want this texture to flow perfectly along, we might run into an issue. Second problem will be if I have here my side material. This is kind of like the cheap way I see very often, gluing a texture on it, but this texture has to bend the same way. And when I go onto this leg and triple click it, you see all these segments. When I go to the leg back, triple click, there are no segments. So the software is going to add actually this these segments to me for me. Whoops, wrong material there. And here I will add this one to the top, to the bottom. There we are. And the back face, I'm just skipping because this would be the repetition of what we're going to do now. Okay, so here it goes. Again, pay attention to how this looks right now. And when we select all these faces, no? Triple clicking maybe, there. There, so you see I selected everything. Everything is selected, so not just some faces, so really everything. Go to UV sketch, click, or here, yeah, and right click, tube. Very good. So now you see how this is all adjusted. Now when I, for example, select this one, click, 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 right click and tube. Look how it created all these edges for me. You saw that also here too. So that is actually really what I want to have. Because now there you can see already how this material nearly perfectly flows. There's a little bit of a disconnect there. We could fix this for this type of an exercise. We can keep it because from a distance, we don't really see this. When you zoom in, then you might see this. But for a quick fix, this is actually really good. And now these faces, I can select, put the material on it. Okay, you see this is not correct now. No problem. So I will do this and fix this. But then you see, wow, what's going on here? Yeah, that's a little bit awkward. So here's a little trick what we're going to do now. Everything is kind of unwrapped in a good way. What we have to do is let's explode it. And the easiest way to fix this issue is we are going to isolate faces. So this is a group. The back here is going to be a group. Yeah. So I'm going to hide this and then I triple click all this and make a group that's the side. So there you see. There we have a group. So we separated all the parts. And now when I go back, select everything and then go back with the UV unwrap and do my tube mapping. There, you see now this works. Okay. Here we have an issue. Why do we have an issue? Well, the material is actually not long enough. So we need to figure out what is it here. 8 inches. So that's the width. What about we make 4 inches? Look, we can get a nice pattern, but then the height, that's wrong. 3 feet. Okay, we're stretching it over it. There. You see? That looks actually much better. Now when we go ahead and say maybe 3 inches, 2 inches, or 10 inches, no? 6 inches. There. Very good. The texture I would like to move a little bit. So when I go back into edit mode, select everything, turn on the sketch UV, pay attention to what we read down here. Now with the arrow keys, left and right, up and down, I can move the texture left and right a little bit. So kind of like trying to perfect this a little bit. Cool. Okay. I unhide everything. You see here the texture is nearly done on the back. So there I have to select everything, sketch UV, and then I use the arrow key up down to fix that issue. That's done. Here it's a little bit off. Again, what we don't see, we don't need to fix, so we can get away with this. And now here, this part, so the sides, I'm hiding these, so you see I'm working just on the sides. They need to get a different material. Okay. There we still now have this kind of issue, not a big deal. Again, click, 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 right click, tube. There it is. Now this is actually rotated incorrectly, the material. We can type in 90 degrees, lower right corner, for example, press enter, and then it should rotate it. There. Now the scale is a little bit off. We can scale with the multiply or divide. So multiplied by 4. Oh, look at that. Multiplied by 4, divided by 2. We can adjust this a little bit. Maybe we click on this edge here and here. So let's maybe try out different mappings. Does this work? Okay. What about I go maybe this way? See, different edges we selected, auto fixed it. It can be a little bit confusing and it might need a little bit of trial and error, but then you saw, yeah, this is actually pretty cool. So I will unhide everything. 2 options now you have at your disposal. Essentially, this is not a manufacturing model. This is just something we would like to put into a space to render. Do these individual surfaces need to be fused together? Maybe not. So I can just say, make a group. So it's one group. Okay. The advantage is I have each individual group, which I can go and edit and select and apply the textures correctly. If I want to explode everything, there, now, and then select everything and make a group, the texture kind of stays now, but now everything is fused together. So when we go back to the sketch UV, we might actually encounter maybe some hiccups again. So my tip, keep these as groups, but when it's really done and you know you're done, just explode and fuse everything into one group. Very good. Okay, so that was pretty much the crash course into how to UV unwrap in SketchUp with the built-in planar mapping tool. When we use the texture and position command, and also the free sketch UV, which then, as you can see, allows us to texture really complicated patterns. And we also covered the scale and position for architectural elements. And you will see that literally everything that's covered in this video is all you need to know. And the nice thing is it applies to every object. It applies to even nearly every program. The methods are always the same. That's it.